Awesome. So I'm a little bit under the weather today. Um, as you can hear, I'm a little congested, but I'm getting better. I'm claiming that. And so I want to just introduce myself or reintroduce myself. So some of you who have are here for the first time, some of you who are, reoccurring, and so we do appreciate each and every one of you. My name is Kerry-Ann Joseph-McLean, the person that was speaking before, which is my husband, my best friend, my partner, business in life and everything. And so his name is Cornell McLean. And so, as he's mentioned, we are not health practitioners, we are health enthusiasts. And so, what we want to do is to encourage each person to be proactive with their health. In different seasons of life, we can be reactive or proactive. And so, there's nothing wrong with that. But as long as you have, you shift your mindset or your self-awareness, it's easier for you to give yourself permission to say, what can I do today to improve my health? Now, please feel free. If you have questions, if you're shy, put them in the comments and in the chat, sorry, and then we will open Q&A towards the end if you would like to ask a question, and to my best of my ability, I will try to answer that for you. And so today we're speaking on self-care for caregivers. And throughout our life, we can have that role. Either we embrace it or we have, sometimes we have these parts of life where we have to just pick up the baton and be able to care for the loved ones. Could be a younger person or an elderly, a friend, a family. But just know that in all the process, it can be challenging, and I can speak from personal experience. Now, for my mother, she's now passed. She had a stroke within actually coming on to 9 years ago. And then 5 years later, to the same month and the same week, she had a second stroke, which was a diabetic related stroke, which left her bedridden. And so my personal choice was to care for her at home. I took a hiatus. I didn't want to put in a home. So I was able to take care of her for those 2 years. And for me, it was with no regrets. Now, not everyone can do that. I actually am very thankful I had the opportunity to do that until she passed away. 2.5, I'm coming on to 2.5 years now. Seemed like yesterday. But I can say this now without crying, because for me, it was something that I made a choice to do, but in the process, you can forget self. You get so focused on something, you tend to lose your sense of taking care of self because you're putting all of your focus and energy on caring for that person, that loved one. So I'm going to share with you some things that you may or may not be aware of. And of course, to share with you some of the tips that I've learned in between. And for that, I think it's important that we sort of things that we aren't aware of, or maybe you are, may be helpful to you, and you can also pass on to others as well. Because we all here, we're a community. We want to help individuals. The brand we represent is actually helping individuals live a better and healthier life. And I can say within those 2 years for my mother, what I'm going to share with you has helped me as well, including my household. Excuse me, sorry about that. So you may hear me a little bit congested, my clear in my throat. That's because I got a cold right after our event. We had an amazing two different events on the weekend on the healthier lifestyle with the brand I'm going to share with you, and it was epic, the two events, and I'm so grateful. And of course, in saying that, what I'm sharing with you kind of ties into it as well. So we will be having more of these in-person events, but I just want to let you know for this past weekend, I'm still on a high. So if you hear my voice elevate a little bit, that's because of the excitement sort of from the event, from the weekend. Excuse me just 1 second. I'm just going to get into my share screen here. Sorry about that. Here we go. And then once I share the screen, please let me know with a 1 if you can see my share screen once I open it up. Okay, can you see my screen? Go on the chat just to confirm. Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, great. So self-care is something that we hear like all over the social media. We hear different things, sometimes, especially in our upbringing, we can think that sometimes self-care can be selfish depending on what your your household environment is like. So for me, self-care is a new healthcare. And this is what I truly believe. You can take care of yourself in some capacity, way, or form. You can actually help yourself to have a longer longevity of life. So as a caregiver at the time, which was something that I chose to do, we have a large family. And so for me, my mom lived with me. So some of the things I'm sharing with you, some of the things I actually, even in hindsight, decide, okay, let me put these things into place. So in your day-to-day activity of caring for someone, whether it's as a profession or you decide to do it for your loved ones, the things that you have to remember is to put yourself back on that to-do list. Self-care, 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 right? So caregiving means including yourself in that care. So the role of a caregiver, as you know, most of us may just know the simple basic things like taking care of personal hygiene with the person that you're caring for, preparing meals, completing housework, medication management, and I did all of these, managing finances, even transportation. Prior to her, my mother actually becoming bedridden from the second stroke within that 5-year window, I took her to all her appointments. And of course, it's managing of time and your ability to care for that person for appointments and to make sure that they're doing the right things. And in your mind, you tend to forget about self because you're curing, you're preparing meals, but then you just grab the easiest thing, you maybe lose sleep. I can tell you for sure for those 2 years, I had broken sleep for those 2 years because caring for someone can feel like it's 24/7, even if you have external care help. For example, we have PSWs coming in 3 times a day for 7 days. And I actually had to teach them what to do because you want to make sure that there's a routine with your loved ones. Now, in other scenarios, that someone could be in a home outside of your house, and of course, these are things you also try to manage as well to making sure that all of these things are provided for. So the main responsibility of a caregiver, as we all know, is to make sure that the person within their care is safe and healthy. So there are things that we also had to be mindful of. So as a caregiver, you have to look out for certain things. And I can share with you some of the coping skills that I actually put in place. And of course, for myself, to make sure that I have some sort of balance. Sometimes it's out of balance some days, and sometimes it feels like you're okay. But some of the caregiver sign of burnout, and I'm going to speak about, caregiver guilt, feeling burnt out, but what you can actually do to help you to take care of yourself during the care you're giving for someone else. Some people may have, care for one person or two parents. So it all depends on what your situation is. So it could be for a year or two, it could be for more than a decade or more. So the signs and symptoms of caregivers burnout could be things like emotional, physical exhaustion. You're not sure why you feel so tired, but you just know you feel exhausted, you feel depleted. You tend to get withdrawal from your friends and family and other loved ones because you want to have that alone time, and you sort of don't realize that that is a sign of being burnt out. A loss of interest in activities previously enjoyed. I know I actually experience that from time to time. And this actually happened to me post my mom passing, feeling hopeless and helpless. And one of the things too for that is that I didn't feel that way during the time my mom was actually bedridden. She was able to communicate with me, but at times with those in your care may feel hopeless and helpless, but will not articulate that, and they may have forms of depression. And of course, basing on how they're observing you, they may try to hide that, and you might try to hide that from them so that they don't feel like they're a burden. So, what each person is thinking something because you're sort of trying to hide that part of you. But these are things that are real emotions and real physical exhaustion can happen. So changing your appetite is one thing, or you may find that you may tend to crave the things that are unhealthy because you're highly stressed, you're internalizing, and so your appetite might increase, but gravitating to the wrong things. Your change in sleep pattern, that happened to me and may have happened to you. Unable to concentrate. That can happen because your sleep cycle's off, you're not eating right, you may eat things that are not really healthy for you, can impact your concentration, and of course you're getting sick more often, and of course you might get more irritable. So for feelings of frustration or anger towards others, you may not project that on the person you're caring for, but people around you, because you feel that you might have feelings of feeling overwhelmed, and you actually do not identify the fact that you're overwhelmed. So it may come out in different ways. So what is a caregiver burnout? So as I said before, physical, emotional, but also it can be psychological, also impact your financial aspect because it could be a burden on your finances because you're taking care of someone, which is unexpected. Excuse me, sorry about that. And so the mental and emotional exhaustion can happen. It just can sort of creep up on you over time because you're suppressing it. So your energy may dip and you may not realize that's the case. But how do you manage your energy, your health, and the ones around you that you're trying to keep safe? So caregiver burnout is a state of physical, emotional, mental exhaustion, as I mentioned before. But some of the other things you might not be aware of. The caregivers can be highly stressed. Now, whether you're working in the field or taking care of someone, like I mentioned, these are some of the things you may or may not be aware of. So I mentioned about being tired, but anxiety is another one. Depression, feeling withdrawn but overly stressed, and of course you are don't have a way to deal with that. So I'll share that with you in a second. But you can actually reduce the risk of burnout when you actually put things in place. So, for example, for my mother, with the care that we received from through the um when my mother left the hospital, we actually had an opportunity to speak with a social worker and the community care in Durham where we live about the additional support we could get. Although at times it was not as consistent at the beginning, there was a routine. So, for example, the respite care is what we actually got through it the latter part of my mother's life. But of course, there's also the other institutional, other programs that you can actually look into, which I'll share. If you have questions on that, I can be more than happy to share that with you. So burning out feels like a candle that runs out of a wick. That's the best way I can actually describe it. It doesn't have what it needs to continue to provide light. So you feel your energy is dipping, you feel a little bit dull, you feel that, you're at your wit's end, so to speak. So it can occur when you don't get the right help you need personally, or you may not have someone you can actually speak to voice your concerns what you're actually going through. So reaching out to someone to speak about how you're feeling is not complaining. It's basically balancing your trying to keep some balance and some sort of order in your life. This can also happen when you try to do more than what you think you're able to. Most of us, especially women, we think we're superwomen. So we have the superwoman complex, so to speak, that think we can do everything and all things. And of course, you may have that emotional breakdown or physical or financial breakdown. So your health and well-being matters just as much as the person you're caring for. Keep that in mind because all of us have value. You may think that, in the case that if you take time away, you may feel some sort of guilt, which I'll share in a second, but you also figure that you're overthinking and sort of worrying more than when you're away from that person that you care for than being in their presence. So it's important to know the signs and symptoms of caregiver burnout so you can get the help you need when you need it the most. So the caregiver guilt I mentioned before can range from things like sadness. It can range from things like, as I mentioned, anxiety, emotional. We're all emotional beings. Of course, it can impact you in many ways. So your mind's racing. You're thinking of all these things and you have no way to have an outlet. So coping with a caregiver's guilt actually can help you to decompress and sort of in a way of releasing some of those negative emotions. So caregiver's guilt is a negative, sorry about that, is a negative manifestation of the distress so we experience when caring for a loved one. So like I mentioned, whether you are caring for a family or friend, or even if you are in that field, it can actually include, as I mentioned before, depression, burden, and anxiety. But some people may feel as if they aren't doing enough for their loved ones. You think, am I doing the right thing? Am I preparing the right things? Am I getting up on time? Am I, giving them the right care so that they don't get things like bed sores or they don't catch, some kind of cold or they don't get ill on your watch, so to speak. Are they feeling, emotionally stable? These are things that may go through your mind when you're caring for someone. So some people may feel that, but of course, despite all of this, just know that you're doing your best. So despite the improvements to the person's quality of life, you may think you need validation from other people. Like they may come and tell you good job, or they may come critique you and says, what are you doing? Why are you caring for that person like this way versus that? And everyone has an opinion. So be mindful of that as well, that you don't internalize that negative emotion when people are speaking to you if you're seeking outside validation. So caregiver's guilt may come with multiple factors, such as guilt for the changing relationship with the person you're caring for, or the guilt over neglecting other aspects of your life. Some people might call you, says, "Well, I don't see you as much anymore," or you sort of isolate yourself. What's going on? And you're sort of abandoning us. Those words can be used. You don't have time for us. So these are things that people can unconsciously say and have you internalize that as to add to your guilt. So some caregiver guilt may come from the person being cared that you're caring for as well. So others also have guilt that may be imposed by others, as I mentioned, those around you. And I can share with you that happened to me in the beginning. I wanted to escape for a weekend, and that became a challenge for the rest of my family. And so I had to make sure that I was able to carve that time out for 2 or 3 days, and for me, that was something I had to learn as a first-time caregiver of someone, an adult person, right? So the lack of time for other relationships is a real thing, can actually feel having you feeling of isolation, or you feel that you are burdened, which may shift in your mind, especially how you're connecting with the person you're caring for, because you may have this make a decision to be positive and optimistic while you're caring for the person, but over time, if you let those negative emotions consume you, it's an energy that can be transferred to the person you're caring for, because they can pick up on those, on a nonverbal communication in a sense. For my mother, I can say in her case, when she had moments in the beginning when she came from the hospital, I had to sort of get it out of her, because, she would say a couple of things, like she wanted to cut off all of her hair, and her hair was quite long. And I would say, why? And she, "Oh, no reason." And I would say, okay, um, let's wait a month and see what happens. And then I would try to coax it out of her. And so eventually she said, "I feel hopeless." And so you take that on, for that person without realizing you're actually internalizing that feeling that the person you're caring for is sort of sharing with you. The self-blame can happen because you may be blaming yourself, or maybe even that person you're caring for is blaming themselves. So you pick up that energy as well. You may have had unresolved past relationships with the person you're caring for. Knowing placements in a care facilities or nursing home may be inevitable. Knowing that in the back of your mind can add extra stress to you, because you may have made a decision to care for the person in the home. But then because of the amount of care that's required, you may not be able to do it alone, especially if you're a single child in a family, or may feel like you're a single child. For my mom, the decision was not to take her to a home. For my aunt who passed away 12 years ago, before I actually was introduced to what I'm going to share with you, we didn't have a choice in that case, because she was diagnosed with two terminal illnesses, and the rapid progression, or sorry, I would say the speed with which her two illnesses attacked her body, she passed within 2 years of her retiring. And so the Dean of Medicine in London, Ontario, told us that we need to make sure we find a place, because we would not be able to manage what was required, and he was absolutely right. For us now, these are decisions, two separate family members making two separate decisions, but these are things that can actually feel like a burden to you, especially when you alone have to make that decision, or you in a family who may have conflicting opinions of how to care for their loved ones. So common signs of, and symptoms of a caregiver's guilt could be like what I'm sharing with you. I'm going to go through every single line. So ambivalence is one, having feelings of resentment, irritability, anxiety, helplessness, even depression and sadness can actually be something that even with yourself can be undiagnosed. You're not aware that you're feeling this. You just feel, you might say, I feel funny. I feel, I might feel like anxious. I don't feel quite right, but you don't realize it might lead up to depression and sadness. So these are things to be mindful of. So the actual thought process of a caregiver may be slightly different from someone else. Most caregivers are givers. They give. So learning how to connect with people outside of your circle of influence another caregiver, reaching out to communities and maybe online who have caregivers in a group. Maybe you want to reach out to for example, in our case, we had community care in Durham, that you could reach out to a social worker and ask questions. And then they will come into the home and do an assessment, and you can actually voice your opinion. But separate from that, you can actually form maybe a group or two of 2 or 3 women or men combined to be able to connect, sort of group, bring you back, in the process of healing and sort of decompressing and moving with a mindset. Yes, it might be long-term or short-term care for that loved one, but you yourself have to care for yourself in that process. So developing friendship, um, you know, having compassion for those around you can be daunting, because especially if you're not feeling that way. But if you're in an environment where you can actually have that, you will actually pick up on that energy that you can actually take back home. And of course, you are feeling much better to care for a loved one. So self-care is, and one thing I want to share with you, it's not selfish. It is healing, it's compassion, it's love, and it's essential. Because if you don't take care of yourself, who's going to take care of you? The best way I can actually describe it is you're in an airplane and you have young ones, you have elderly, and the captain is saying, there's some turbulence. Buckle your seatbelt, the mask will come down, place it over your head so you can get the oxygen you need. So what happens now if you decide to ignore that? And so you put on the mask onto the children or child, and then the elderly one. By the time your turn to care for yourself, you would have passed out from lack of oxygen. So how effective, or how can you help those who are not able to? Same thing in this case. You have to find ways of caring for yourself and trying to find a little bit of balance every day so that you can focus on the positive aspect of caregiving. So in my case with my mom, I'm very thankful because I got to spend every single day with my mom and was able to, have some fun times. She's cracking jokes, be able to communicate with her, come in and see her, from when it was go out. And for me, in my case, it was for me rewarding because I got to have no regrets when she passed. So, but in all of that, remember to do certain things. So, in your way of thinking and caring for someone, you're knowing that you're helping the individual to enhance their physical well-being. In my mom case, she couldn't move, but of course, I taught myself certain things did physiotherapy with my mom in the bed, exercise in the bed, even though she gave me that particular look and I actually didn't want to do it, but she did it every single day, 7 days a week, and we were able to have some sort of mobility back in the side that wasn't functioning. And so the consistent physical activity helps that person, and you actually see that they have positive outcome, makes you feel better. Stimulating mental acuity, the caregiver's demand is, of course, is very demanding, but managing things like medication and all of these things helps you with your cognitive stimulation, so keeps you mindful so that you are not having a decline in your cognitive whilst you're taking care of someone to help them with their cognitive care. So these are things you have in place, a routine, systematic, so keeps your mindset sort of fresh and alert. Cultivating emotional resilience. So the emotional journey of caregiving is ups and downs. This can actually help you to create, identify more things that you weren't aware of that you were good at. I had this actually several people come into our home, from the PSWs to directors to supervisors from time to time. And they would ask me a question, are you a PSW? I go, no, I'm not a PSW. Are you a nurse? No, I'm not. You sure? I said, I'm sure. Because I decided to take excellent care of my mom to the best of my ability. And I had to learn certain things brand new, from the way how to bathe her, to care for her, to prepare meals for her, to make sure that I can carve some time still without feeling depleted, right? So these are things that you are become resilient with. And so as you do that, you develop new skills, you develop new ways of coping, and you actually become emotionally stronger. So over time, you can find yourself better equipped to handle other life challenges because you have the ability to have more patience and to be more empathetic. And you will find that, especially if you want to commit to taking care of someone else, and not just a child, or you're thinking of, your elderly parents as a task, but you actually genuinely are looking forward to helping that person every single day, even though you have your challenging moments. So it also helps with expanding your social network. So sometimes you feel isolated. It can happen. So connecting with groups, support groups, as I mentioned before, speaking with your family members, letting them know that you can't do this alone. You need their support. And of course, you have a sense of purpose because most people, when you are caring for someone, you sort of take your mind off of your problems and you focus on that person to help them. And so it helps you to reduce your stress levels in some cases and improve your mental health. So it also helps to increase your longevity of life. So think of it this way that if you decide to care for someone or you're in the process of thinking about it, or you're actually doing that, you are that have that role, it helps you to identify the things that you have to do, but also inspires you to be healthier. So for example, with my aunt who was in a home that she wasn't able to move after a while. She became bedridden and she lost her speech, the ability to eat over time because of those two illnesses that she had. You find you are more mindful. And I'm saying this in case you can be in that circumstance, in that environment or the situation where you're a caregiver, and you can think 30 years ahead of the choices you have to make now to live a healthier, longer life. And so if you're taking mental notes, you can say, okay, I have the ability to make healthier lifestyle choices today as I care for someone else. And so the continuous mindset, the self-awareness of health and wellness will be playing in your head. So you will unconsciously adopt better personal habits that will improve, like, for example, your nutrition, your healthier, your regular exercises. And the reason I say that with my mom, I knew I was doing it before, but for my mom, I would make sure, like on a Sunday, I would prep all her meals, prep all of the meats, all of the vegetables, load ways of keeping them fresh, have them in a 3-part container, label them, make 2 weeks worth of food. And of course, that would reduce the amount of time I'm in the kitchen so I can spend more time with my mother. So these are things that I adopted with my mom, making sure she's having the right nutrition, spoke with the nutritionist, explained what we're doing. We were on track with that. So now, as we're making the healthier meals for my mom, we are unconsciously in the home doing the same thing. We are doing the physical activity with mom, doing the physiotherapy, showing her, helping her to stretch and do the things she needs to do for her physical activity. So by default, we're thinking, okay, I have to go for that walk just to balance myself for self-care, or I have to do my stretches, or I have to make sure I get some sleep in between. So you sort of develop a routine in your mind as well. So the act of caregiving yourself can be a source of stress relief, depending on your circumstances, unless you're feeling overwhelmed. But having the mindset of a caregiver takes a special kind of person. I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm not speaking about you, the individual who is considering being a caregiver, or if you are already. So kudos to you. So compassionate interaction releases this thing called oxytocin. So this hormone level actually helps to reduce your stress level. I can share this with you. When I would come into the door, my mom's name was Anna. And I would walk in, I would say, Anna Banana, I'm home. And she would say, Yoo-hoo. And I said, how are you? I'm doing good. So that made me feel good that she was responding in that way. So that was a stress reliever as well, right? So we had this routine every single day. So taking care of yourself. There's some strategies you can think of. Think of the accomplishments. Think of the things that you were able to do well with the person you're caring for. Pat yourself on the shoulder. You're doing the best you can. So surround yourself, as I mentioned, with support. You determine what best suits you. Sometimes you may not be a person that likes groups. You may have a 1 or 2 friends you can connect with, Staying social. I'm not speaking about social media, but staying active, interactive with the people around you in your circle of influence, and the people around you who are your social network. Remember to carve time for yourself to get to escape a little bit. That's a lack of a better term. Take time for you, even if it's a weekend or a day, and sort of plan ahead so you have time for yourself to sort of regroup, realign, and recalibrate. So as a caregiver, you can have to be realistic, of course, in what you can and can't control. And so what you can control is that your loved one that has a chronic progressive disease. You can't control the speed with which they may have decline in their health if there is no known cure, so to speak. If they aren't able to, they may have, for example, stage 4 cancer and may have had a few weeks to live. In some cases, can be reversed depending on the person's protocol that's been given to them. But in some cases, like my mom, actually was in the sec what she passed away from. But there are things that are coming out of us sort of left field that you're not aware of in your current state or space. But you can control how you respond to the situation. So you're taking ownership as a caregiver, and you're recognizing that it might be a long-term role as a caregiver. So be realistic and think positive as well, because it's very easy to think negative if you allow yourself to do that. So here are some tips I'll share with you. Have confidence in your role as a caregiver. You may have other people who are trying to second guess your care. So you have to be mindful of that. There's a term I like to use, guard your mind and guard your heart. So be mindful and knowing that you're doing the best and you're learning, so to speak, on the job. It's a tough job. You may commit to 20 years or 10 years or 15 years. In my case, I was committed for a long time. But unfortunately, she passed away within 2 years of her having that second massive stroke. So owning your feelings is another thing as well. Allow yourself to feel sorrow. Allow yourself to feel anger and resentment. May not do that in front of the person that you're caring for. In my case, I didn't want my mom for her to feel that she was a burden. I would share with that to her as well when she voiced her opinion, her thoughts that she was feeling helpless, hopeless. And I would say to her, she's not a burden, because these are things that they can assume in their head. So allow yourself to feel have those feelings, but not stay in that state, right? Have somebody you can speak to. Maybe you can take up journaling to sort of release those thoughts from your mind and your heart. Acknowledge your limitations. Don't think you're a superwoman, superman, right? Things do happen, and realize you're doing the best that you can. And don't be afraid to ask for help. If you don't ask, you don't know. Listen to your body, or the person around you. Let the person who's observing you sort of listen to what it comes from a good source, of course, of the person who's caring about you and your household, your family member, a friend. They may notice things about you that you're not realizing, especially if you're not sleeping well, or if you're not eating right, or you're not taking your right medication if you're on medication. So give your body the ability to get what it needs so it can recharge your battery, so to speak. Learn the signs of chronic depression. This is something to watch out for. The symptoms of depression can vary, and of course, it can be managed with therapy, in some cases medication if needed, but it's also natural ways that I'm going to share with you in a short while of how you can do that. Of course, if you want to reach out to a counselor, that could be something that you can do so you can have a healthy balance of care, whether you're taking something in that can help you in a natural way, a therapeutic way, in a way of therapy, in some cases where it's severe, you may need medication until you educate yourself as to what works for you. Even the coping skills that you can pick up as well to help you. So if you're thinking of how you can care for yourself, or you're going to speak with individuals in that circle of communication, getting tips or giving tips of how to maintain a sense of self outside of the caregiver role, because sometimes we take on that one role and then we do not allow ourselves to live, to thrive. So allow yourself time for personal time, like things like going for that walk, going out to a concert here and there, spend some time with your girlfriend. Maybe if you can have a date night, try to balance it and schedule it so that you're able to say, okay, there's some balance, some semblance of balance that you can actually have whilst you're caring for a loved one without having the caregiver's guilt. So communicating with other caregivers, as I mentioned, staying connected with the outside world. Also, I mentioned before about the respite care. With my mom, we had 3 agencies that we worked with to get the hours we needed. And one of them was a respite care program that helped us in the evening to care for mom. So mom was a 2-person assist kind of a situation, especially when caring for her personally. So in that case, the additional hours we got through the respite care, and then through the latter part of her stage of her life, she had the end of life. She was home, and of course there were things I had to administer to her, and we had the additional care of a nurse coming in every every other day, just to provide insight and support to us and to give guidance, but most of that care came from me. So having the support of that, if you have a loved one, in this case, my younger sister would come in the evenings and help. So if you do not speak or share what you need help with, people are going to assume you can take it on by yourself, that you're strong. But without getting irritated or angry, just have family meetings. Explain this is where you are, your bandwidth is this much, and speak to individuals in your family, and then maybe they might give you a suggestion about how you can go about the respite care. Stick to the present. Do what you have to do today, and then also know that tomorrow will see for itself, so to speak. Still plan ahead, like for example, the meals and all the appointments you have to do and take your loved ones to. But don't worry about the things you can't control in the immediate future or the future, so to speak. So think of today and appreciate what you're able to do, spend time with your loved ones without feeling overburdened. So the reason why I've shared all of that with you is basically walking you through the journey of a caregiver. And from like I mentioned, I can speak from personal experience for those 2 years. So another thing I want you to speak on as well is what you do to support your body whilst you're caring for a loved one. So I mentioned to you I have an aunt who passed away, actually coming on to 13 years. Sorry, 14 years to be exact. I can mark it because of the anniversary of her death, close to my anniversary of my wedding anniversary. So that's how I sort of do the math. And so when she passed, before she passed away, we sort of looked at ways as she was in a home, what we could do to help her because she had Pick's disease and she had ALS. Unfortunately, ALS took her faster than the Pick's disease, which is a form of dementia. Post her passing, when we laid her to rest, I will share this information. Not in this form, but I will share with the benefits of what it could do by someone sharing their testimony, what it did for them. Each person's body is different. It actually, your body never lies. It tells you exactly how you feel. It feels. But I can say for sure at this stage, from what I've learned over the past 12, 13 years, I know that this could be a potential support that could be given to my aunt, but again, in God's timing. So this is called Candida hallucinum. It's a superfood. Now, you don't have to have a terminal illness to be able to know about this. But as a caregiver, as I mentioned before, anxiety, depression, and all of the things that you may have, fatigue, you may be impacted with all of these things. So what if you can actually help support your body, your immune system, your health and well-being as you're caring for loved ones? This is a superfood that I, myself, my family, my household have been consuming for 12 years in different forms. So I'll give you an example. All of us need supplements. We need omega-3s, fatty acids, probiotics. We need all of these things. But what if you were to consider a superfood as a caregiver to have to support yourself so that you can be and perform at your optimal best? So all of us know we need antioxidants, but what if you're able to get, you know, 10x, even more than 10x, what you would normally get in your everyday foods that you eat? We all need food for energy, but you may not get all the right supplements you need. For example, your amino acids, you need your minerals, vitamins. So, for example, let's say you love green tea. I love green tea. And in this case, one dose of Canoderma gives you 150 antioxidants. That actually helps your body, but you need to have 54 cups of just green tea to have the same dose of just having a single dose of Ganoderma. So not only is it helping with the well-being, it helps support your energy level, your stamina, it sets up less fatigue, it helps with oxygenates your body, it helps with the mental alertness, and so many other things. And I will share with you a little bit where I got this information from. As I mentioned, I'm not a practitioner, but I'm a health enthusiast. So there are credible sites I've gone to. I love research. And of course, I love giving information and sharing. So this is why I'm so passionate about sharing this with you. So most medicinal mushrooms are higher fungi with nutraceutical properties. So they're low in calories, low in fat, with a very rich source of nutrients and bioactive compounds. So things like carbohydrates, proteins, fibers, and so forth. If you're thinking of taking vitamins and you're good at taking every single day, kudos to you. I 3% of the world does that. I am not part of that 3%, but I know I love my beverages. Growing up in the Caribbean, that's actually what I gravitate to. So you're eating these foods you may get, a lower dosage of the antioxidants and vitamins and minerals you need. So what if you were to include a superfood to help you, or even the person you're caring for, to be able to get the right balance of antioxidants? So things like antioxidants, terpenoids, flavonoids, these are all things that we all know we need. Many things like protecting free radicals, damage from your body, your gut, mental acuity, your cardiovascular, your eyes, all of these things that we know our body needs protection from, anti-inflammatory properties we know from these foods that we can eat. And then there's some individuals who have health conditions that they can't eat certain foods, especially if it's not organic. So this is where we are so excited. So we discovered Wellness with Organo, I mentioned to you, about 13 years ago. And we fell in love with this brand as customers. And the timing of it happened in a way where I was upset, but so thankful. Because for 2 years I looked for anything that could help my aunt, where she was one of those individuals who fell between the crack. Because as a Black woman having Pick's disease, which is a European illness, ALS, no dietary restriction, no medication can help her. I strongly believe something was out there to help her, but unfortunately she passed. And literally 3 weeks after she passed, someone shared with me something like this. I was upset. I was angry. But then my cousin would tell me, why are you upset? What you normally say is correct. And I would say, well, what are you talking about? And they would say everything happens for a reason, and that reason is to serve us. So in this case, I couldn't have helped my aunt. But in this case, I want to be able to share this with the people of the world like you and I, because it's important to me to share what we know and not keep and hog the information in our heart that we know we take to the grave. So we are a brand because I decided, my husband and I, to represent this brand. So I'm going to call myself a global ambassador for this brand. So Organo is a Canadian company, and we're a brand with a purpose. We help people create better health, better lives, healthy and richer lives through what I'm going to share with you. So we bring the treasures of the earth to the people of the world. That's you and I. We are a brand that provides this amazing Ganoderma lucidum, also known as reishi, also known as linseed. So in Japan and in China and other places, they have different names, but it's the same thing. In Canada, we can proudly state through the Health Canada, board, that this Ganoderma, it actually provides support. It helps to give your body a healthy immune system. So it fights infection and diseases, but it does so much more. So we want to practice, health, mindfulness, through positivity, and providing wellness in this capacity. So think about it this way. If you can make one small change, it can leave a lasting impact on your health. Would you be open to at least entertaining the idea for yourself? So we're a body management company through Healthier Lifestyle, and we provide supplements and beverages to support your active and healthy lifestyle. But if you are looking in a way to help your overall well-being, these are what I'm going to share with you. So you get the best nutrients, delivering an incredible results because the body does not lie. It tells you exactly how it feels. So if you go to Amazon, you search online, you will find this Ganoderma reishi. And of course, you have to be aware of the source it comes from. So you can get something online, you search it, and say, okay, it's cheaper here versus there. But you have to be aware of the source. So ours is naturally grown organically. It's actually protected by a patent, and we have over 32 plus certification. Now, what is considered organic? It could be grown in a plastic bag, so it's free of pesticides, so it's deemed organic. But the ability to get all the nutrients out of it is vastly different. So ours, as you can see, the left is nice, bright color versus the right, which is a little bit sickly. So think about it this way. If let's say you have an unhealthy body, you have a sickly body, you cannot produce healthy offspring. Same thing with this. If this actual mushroom is actually grown in an environment where you're not getting all the nutrients, you're not getting the full potency of it. So think of it this way. We take vitamins, most times we take it and the rest you pass it out. With our Ganoderma lucidum, your ability, for example, the spores, is 99% absorption rate. That means it stays in your body. Versus other brands where the ability to have that absorption in your body is between 4% and 13%. That's a huge difference. So the actual Ganoderma grows in 3 stages, which is the mycelium, the roots, the Ganoderma, the fruiting body, and the spores, which is little seeds that go into the air, go back onto the plum logs, and then germinate more. That's how we say it's naturally grown. Versus those that are not artificially grown cannot produce spores. That's what I'm referring to. So if you can think of unlocking your full potential by consuming either through the capsules, which are vegetable casing. I love these, and the spores is actually my go-to. I love those. And the amount of, nutrients you get just by consuming these, your body will perform in different ways. Of course, you got to pay attention to that. So here are some information I found. You can actually go to those sites yourself, pubmed.gov. I love going there. There's over 3,000 plus case studies of Ganoderma lucidum, cordyceps, and lion's mane, which I'll share with you in a second. So it's one of a highly nutritious, significantly effective medicinal herb. It's considered a food supplement and a medicinal food source. So if you're thinking of something that has a win-win, I love it because there's no known toxicity. There's no negative interaction with medication. Over the 3,000 plus case study, there are individuals who've had heart conditions. They have individuals who have, situations like cancer, and they actually able to take their medication and complement it with what they're taking, or as an alternative, depending on the guidelines they're given with a nutritionist or naturopathic, doctor. So many of the things I'm sharing here, I won't go through it line by line, but as you can see, some PubMed IDs, and you'll be able to maybe watch the recording again. I do save it on my YouTube channel as well. And for those of you who are part of our group, you're able to get the copy of that. But things like Ganoderma lucidum helps with so many things, including inflammation. So your body is highly stressed because you're going through certain things. And if you're looking at ways to reduce your stress and all these things that you may find that may impact you as a caregiver, maybe incorporate something like Ganoderma or even lion's mane. So we know Ganoderma supports the immune system because most times if you're a caregiver, you tend to get more sick if you're highly stressed or you find that your mood is impacted. Helps with improving your mood, helps with longevity, helps to fight stress. So we mentioned before you may have issues with your sleep, may feel fatigued, may have issues like sleep disturbance. Well, here the Ganoderma helps promote sleep through your gut. Also helps with, it fights fatigue, so it's anti-fatigue. Also aids in sleeping. So the spores, as well as the mycelium, can help with that. What I mentioned before, it goes into 3 stages, right? Also helps with things like insomnia. Most times in my case with my mom, I had broken sleep. So 3 times the PSW, I would wake up, take care of her, get a little nap, go back, take care of her again in the afternoon, take a little nap, and then take care of her. Because in the first 3 months, I was on high alert because at night she may have like spasms on her leg, which we were able to resolve. So these are things that you have to think of as a caregiver, how you can take care of self. And I found for me, taking these capsules helped me. And I can say for that time, I did not get sick. I didn't get sick. This cold I have now, I think I got the cold once in 4 years. And this is beginning of care for my mom. I got the cold, which I recovered in a few days, and this is the first time I've gotten sick since then. So I'm going to knock on wood. That's the case. I know it helped me. But again, your body is different than mine, so it depends on how your body responds to what you consume. Also, it helps with it has protective effects on oxidative damage. So we know if your body's going through oxidative stress, it can damage many things, causing inflammation, can cause so many things in your body to not be quite right or behave in a certain way that's going to cause illness versus wellness. So think of these as an option you can actually supplement or add to or complement what you're doing right now. The ability as well to rejuvenate the body and the mind through different things, like I mentioned before, getting out there, being active. You may feel fatigued, you may have anxiety, you may have depression. So consuming something like that would actually help to reverse those symptoms. So you may have a feeling of overall well-being versus feeling stressed or having anxiety. Now, depending on the severity of your anxiety, if you have, major depressive disorder and you're taking medication, you may consider something like this because you can actually supplement it. As you see this PubMed here, or the second one, as I mentioned, 392-41163, there's actually a proven study that shows that you can take, X amount of gandamulocin to improve the psychological well-being as a supplement. So Ganadum and cordyceps also works in synergy with each other. It comes in form that I'll share with you in a second. Also, helps with many other things. The ability to share this with you, again, I won't go through every single line, but you have an idea of what I'm referring to in the way of how it can help. I mentioned the capsule form, but most of all, I want to share with you one more thing. As you can see the slides here, these are the three things we fall in love with. In the beginning it was Ganoderma, now we've learned about cordyceps, now lion's mane. So these three work in synergy with each other. And the fact that you can consume it in different beverages actually is so great with our bread. There's a bunch of things that we know that cordyceps can help with. I just know I won't go through all of it, but knowing that cordyceps helps with physical performance, enhancing healthy energy, and of course provides many other beautiful therapeutic potential as listed out here. Excuse me. We know that inflammation is very common in people who have conditions. If you don't have a condition, a serious illness, you can still consume it because it helps distress the body as well. It also helps with improving your sleep, especially in symptoms in patients who have depression. And if you're not a patient, of course, it's still good to have to help with your overall well-being. The lion's mane helps with your mood, helps with the mountain energy, helps with cognition, it helps with fatigue and focus. And so these are all PubMed studies we found. Here's some more here. It helps with other things, not just those I mentioned, but also helps with the gut-brain axis of communication, I should say. So these are the actual brands that we have. These are premium brands. We've been consuming these. I've tried all of these, especially over the weekend at the event we had on Sunday. I sampled everything. But the beautiful way it was infused into these products is ingenious. So think about it this way. You're drinking a capsule, you're drinking vitamins, sometimes bitter, sometimes okay, but you can consume coffee, tea, hot cocoa that you normally have. And let's think about switching your brand and consuming something that you're tasting the quality of the hot cocoa, teas, and so forth, and you're getting your daily dose. I have a couple of friends who they take that plus the capsules because they have underlying conditions. So think of it this way as you consuming something that's helping your body every single day, and you don't have to change your habit, right? So this one is actually has become one of my favorites because I was never a coffee drinker before this brand, couldn't drink it, and I love it because you have the triple mushroom blend. Has so many benefits. Those three together as a synergistic way of working, or by themselves. So in the case, most of the products you saw have Ganoderma, which is a fruiting body. Some have just the spores. In this case, it has all three. And so think of it this way: if you buy coffee on the road, on the fly, in the store, sorry, on the fly, you go into the store and you're sort of like going to get your coffee, you can actually save money by simply switching your brand for 30 days. I apologize. For 30 days. And think of it, if you spend $3 a day, $5 is actually going very cheap. $5 a day, right? For a cup of coffee in your favorite, coffee shop. And you're doing this for 30 days. That's $150 roughly. But think of it, you switch out to one box of coffee and you spend anywhere from 73 cents to $1.50, sometimes $2 a cup. You're still saving money. So not only are you putting an ease on your finances, you're putting something healthy into your system, you're getting the benefits you need, and you're able to, excuse me, sorry about that. My sinus is getting crazy. Oh my gosh. So you're able to consume something that's going to help you in a way that will allow you to get the benefits, save money as you're caring for someone. So you have an overall well-being, you take care of yourself in this aspect, plus what I shared with you, I believe in my case, in my household, we did the same thing and it has helped us. So if it can help you, I don't know, but I would say reach out to the person who invited you, let them share with you, the types of different types of products we have, whatever suits your palate. You will gravitate to. I gravitate to the King. I love the Royal, and I love my capsule. So I tend to drink the others as well, but those are my go-to for now. So with that, I want to thank you. I want to ask if there's any questions you may have, you'd love to ask. I would like to answer. Sorry, I said it backwards there. Is there any questions you may have whilst I go through the list of comments here in the chat to see if anyone had a question? Oh yeah, Sharon. Royal has become my new favorite too. I'm seeing your comments here. I love it, especially with honey. Any questions, anyone? Feel free. This is a safe environment. If you have questions, if you feel shy, you can send a message or you can put in the comments. Okay. So it was a pleasure speaking with all of you, or sorry, sharing with all of you my insight on it as a caregiver for my mom, sharing some tips, being able to connect with you. We do this every single week. I started this in January with our team, and I'm so thankful that we were able to do this and to be able to share with you. Feel free to invite others. It is a free call. And I look forward to seeing you here again next week. Again, it is my honor to be able to do this with you. You could have been doing something else, but you chose to be here. So thank you once again, and have a great, great evening. Bye for now. Oh, sorry, before I go, you may receive a survey.
Thank you very much, Kerry-Ann.
Oh, you're very welcome, Carmen. You will receive a Zoom survey if you I was so thankful if you can fill it out so we can get your feedback. Once you end it, it'll be sent to you. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, Kerry-Ann.
Thank you. Have a great day.